I'm Kali Alexander, account executive here at GlideFast Consulting. And I have some amazing guests here today with an amazing topic, and I'm so glad that you're here. So we wanted to just find out, I'm just looking at the poll question myself. What is the biggest challenge you currently face in digitally transforming your manufacturing operations? We'd love to know that. Give you a few minutes on that one. And before we get started, I'd like to give you some background information on GlideFast. GlideFast Consulting is a firm that is dedicated exclusively to ServiceNow. As an Elite ServiceNow partner, our expert team of developers and architects have worked on both sides of the table, the customer side and the consulting side. Our company was founded by ServiceNow architects, and we're proud to have a team of over 600. I think that number might be a little low, a whole lot of experienced consultants and an average CSAT score of 4.8 out of 5, and many more accolades. We are Customer Workflow Partner of the Year for 2 years running, Elite ServiceNow Partner of the Year for 2022 and 2023. And well, what does that mean to you? Well, basically what that means is that when you select GlideFast as your implementation partner, that you can be confident that you are getting best in class hands on your instance and taking really good care of your business and digital transformation. All right, so we have our poll results now. Wow, so the question was, what is the biggest challenge you're currently facing in digitally transforming your manufacturing operations? And it looks like 50% of you said lack of a skilled workforce to implement and manage new technologies. Yeah, I can imagine that being a big one. And then second came as integrating new technologies with existing systems. And we'll get into these as well. And then third, legacy systems and outdated infrastructure. Thank you so much for your participation. So let us get started. How can the manufacturing sector take risk and innovate when there's so much at stake? As we've observed over the past century, yes, the past century, operational technology traditionally lags behind information technology. In the manufacturing sector in particular, operations are the bread and butter of the business. Any disruption or issue in production can have severe consequences, not just financially, but also on customer satisfaction and on reputation. Considering the variety of factors at play, I wanted to invite two leaders to the space to explore the topic, the now of manufacturing, trends, manufacturing, and strategic investments. I couldn't think of two better people to have than my two guests today. One of them I get to work shoulder to shoulder with. So I'm so pleased to have Mark Harper here. Mark Harper is a solution sales consultant at GlideFast Consulting. He's been key in providing businesses with the tools they need to streamline operations, improve efficiency, and drive growth. Mark's professional empathy and extensive knowledge of the industry has made him a thought leader in the manufacturing technology and an industry go-to for delivering sustainable solutions for manufacturing organizations. And we'll get to Mark a little bit in the second half of the conversation. But I also want to introduce to you a new professional friend that I'm really excited that he even knows my name. So I want to talk to you a little bit about kicking the conversation off with Alan Hackman. Alan serves as AVP and GM of the manufacturing industry vertical at ServiceNow. Alan is both a visionary and strategist in empowering manufacturers to embrace digital transformation and take advantage of evolving technologies. As a thought leader, his expertise is often sought after for his insights on the future of manufacturing and how companies can leverage technologies to stay competitive in a rapidly changing market. Together, Mark and Alan will share their insights on the current state of manufacturing, emerging trends, and strategic investments that are driving success in this ever-changing industry. So listen, I always like to say, we can't hear you, but if you could put your hands together for, let's welcome Alan Hackman. Alan, thank you so much for joining me for this webinar.
Excited to be here. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's do this. Listen, so before we get into it, I'm a little bit curious about, tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get here? And kind of like, what do you do at ServiceNow for the manufacturing sector?
Yeah, so I've luckily had my whole career in manufacturing. Started out as a business analyst, was quality manager on the factory floor. So learn the industry from the inside out. And in the last 6.5 years, have the privilege of working at ServiceNow, of taking all my prior experiences and helping others learn from it and benefit from it, and just kind of fall in love with the technology. But really, my passion is around business process improvement, is how
Mm,
to do things better, more efficiently, drive things forward through technology, right, and not the other way around. And so I
yeah,
spend my days at ServiceNow both helping our customers envision of how to best use the platform outside of IT. As many people know, ServiceNow is the IT ticketing tool, and we're great at that. But my mission here at ServiceNow is really to show them the power of the platform to expand outside of those areas,
sure.
and then take those learnings and all the asks from our customers. And then I also serve kind of the internal liaison to our product and our marketing teams and training teams of how we can grow and develop the platform to specifically serve the needs of our manufacturing customers. So really fun job. I'm having a great time and excited to share some thoughts and insights with you today.
For sure. I had a really good time reading some of your thoughts in automation world. So I'm hoping that we can kind of double click on those. But you
Sure.
said something in your bio that I didn't know, and I'm happy to hear this. You said that you actually worked in as a customer on the manufacturing floor, which I think is going to give you a really unique perspective in these conversations because you're not just somebody who's kind of sitting in an office, kind of talking about how we can help manufacturing, but you've actually been in a manufacturing plant and know the pains firsthand of what's being experienced there. I think that's a really great perspective to come from.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty lucky and maybe unique. I don't like to say unicorn because those look weird, but it's I've had the pleasure of working for manufacturing on the inside, consulting in terms of implementing software, and now I'm selling it. I'm not really a salesperson, but having a full perspective of all the different angles of our customers.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, Alan, set the stage for us. Like, what does digital transformation look like for the manufacturing sector, and why is now more critical than ever, or is it more critical than ever for manufacturing organizations to be considering and pursuing digital transformation?
Yeah, and as we all know, digital transformation is kind of the buzzword. It's been around
Yeah.
forever. It just became in vogue, right? But I just before it was Six Sigma and continuous improvement. Now it's digital transformation. But there's three areas I want to highlight today that is the why now and the common themes that I'm hearing, and hopefully our audience is the same. And one of the drivers in terms of back to your question, why now? So one is around just the digital factory, and so I think like 80%, we've done some surveys of all our manufacturing customers have some type of digital transformation in the factory going on, right? It's called Factory of the Future or Smart Factory or 4.0. Investing in that. And why is as you hinted earlier, right? OT technology are lagging well behind, and
Yeah.
they haven't really invested in modernizing their factories in many, many years. And so they're investing in it now. Why? Because there's new technologies available, because in the survey, labor shortages, et cetera. How do we drive more automation? It's not just to reduce cost, and that's obviously important, but the skills gaps and labor shortage, there's no end in sight. So how can we be more productive on the factory floor, and how are we going to get there is through digital transformation. So that's one of why now is driving efficiencies and cost and safety on the factory floor.
Yeah.
That's one big why now. The second why now is, again, really about the employee. And I've seen a really interesting shift of focusing on the employee, right? Retention, time to productivity and onboarding, job satisfaction, the war for talent. And we'll hit on a little bit, I'm sure, on our
Mm-hmm.
employee-based workflows. But early on, when we started employee workflows, it was all about the HR department. How do we make the HR department more efficient? And that's important, clearly. But over the last year to two, probably, it's shifted to how do we better serve our employees? And so the HR people are like, yeah, we can do our jobs fine, but how do we make the lives of our employees better? So there's a second shift around employee retention and attraction,
Yeah.
skills development. And then lastly is, this has been a factor since I've been in manufacturing, probably always was and always will be, is cost out, right? Is how do we reduce our costs, especially with inflation? They're getting pressure of rising raw material cost. They can't rise prices anymore, so they're trapped at the top, right? So you can't grow by increasing your prices. So the only way is to improve your margins, is to improve efficiencies and reduce cost out. Especially, for example, like in the auto industry, they're trying to drive out costs so they can take those savings and reinvest in the EV shift. And other industries are doing similar. So we're seeing huge initiatives or cost out in the region. Digital transformation so important in that spot is driving things faster, better, more
Mm,
productivity, right? And so I think those three areas are kind of the why, because and there's many, many more, but I think those are the three common conversations that I have in my days talking to customers.
For sure. And all those three things, I'm like, okay, I want to talk about each of
Yeah,
those. And I think we
sure.
have time to do so.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about cost because that's always, people are always concerned about cost and spend. And I'm curious from your view, when organizations are planning for their digital transformation, how should leaders prioritize their investments to ensure both immediate and long-term outcomes?
Yeah. I mean, I think the key is prioritization is they have to align with your company strategy, right? So, hey, where do we want to go, right? And the technology and the initiatives should follow that. It's like, where is your biggest pain? Where can you get us the biggest return? And I know is when they're making investments, there's typically a short term look. Hey, the CFOs will
Yeah,
sign off if there's typically a 1 year ROI. Keeps getting shorter and shorter, right? Like, um, but I think you need to look, yeah, short term. There's some low hanging fruit, but also I think looking a little longer term is important as well, right? Because as we know as well, systems and processes don't change that much, and so the time and energy it takes to transform something, it's going to be in place for a while. So hey, I think that's important. But probably the other piece would be kind of where the market's going, right? For your industry, right? So where do I need to be and make those investments accordingly?
sure. Sure. You also mentioned the factory floor and in preparation for our fireside chat today, if this is correct, I was like, wow, this is going to be interesting to see how this impacts the industry, the manufacturing industry. I understand that 50% of workers in the manufacturing industry are 55 years and older.
Yeah.
50%, right? So I'm curious about like what that impact means for the industry and how is technology sort of solving for that?
Yeah, that is common conversation of like, oh my God, there's been this guy who's running this machine for 30 years and he's leaving. So the
Yeah,
a big concern is the loss of institutional knowledge, right? And so how are they trying to mitigate that? And so where we're coming into play in technology is kind of digitizing that knowledge, right? It's super hard, but the technology is there is how do I digitize how I fix things? How do I digitize how to set up a machine, how to do a changeover, how to deal with all these issues, right? So when this happens, do this. And so they're leveraging technology to capture the knowledge and create a robust knowledge base, right? Of how to. So it's not sitting in somebody's head who may not be here in a few years from now.
sure.
And so that really reduces risk of the company, really decreases the time to productivity for new employees. But it's a big problem, right? And I mean, it's great for these manufacturing companies that wow, the longevity they have with these employees is fantastic, but um, it puts a big risk as well. So knowledge base is cool. And the second piece, I think it's making it even easier is the buzz around AI, right? Um,
Yes.
they forced me to talk about Gen AI, so I have to talk about it for a minute. I worked it in. So here's an easy one.
Right.
So the old days was, hey, great, I want to know how to do something. Here's a long manual, your user manual, operation manual, or knowledge article, whatever. And people on the floor don't have time to read that. So instead of having to shift through these, now, assuming it's still digital, right? That was where we were. And now we can zip you right to the piece, right? And summarize maybe multiple documents, say, oh, this is how you do the changeover, exactly what you need to know. So that is super exciting in terms of productivity. So not only did you digitize the knowledge, but now you made it even easier for somebody on the floor to consume that knowledge.
I appreciate that. Yeah, oftentimes we talk about digital transformation and there is the fear, the individual contributors and even in management concerns about, well, what does this mean for job security, right? So we're talking about an aging workforce, and then we're also talking about an industry where digital transformation is now being a mandate. So workers need to have some sense of job security. I mean, people don't work 30 years at the same company the way
Yeah.
they used to, the way maybe our parents did, but still a level of job security is still top of mind for a lot of workers coming into the workforce. So I appreciate what you said there and what you said earlier about before when we talked about uh, human resources, it was all about making the job of people who work in HR easier at Knowledge 24, and I'm going to jump here for a moment. Knowledge 24, in Bill McDermott's keynote address, Bill McDermott, CEO and chairman of the board of ServiceNow, he talked about the employee experience at least 5 times in his
Yeah.
keynote address, at least 5 times. And I'm curious from your view, uh, how is ServiceNow or how is technology helping to improve the employee experience for those frontline workers?
Yeah. So it's been a hot topic, one of the hot topics that I brought up earlier. So one is access. So if I start with just the initial access, is a lot of times, and it's pretty common still that frontline workers don't have access to systems, right? They don't have their own email or log on, et cetera, cost savings, et cetera. But so we're working on ways to just give them access without having to spend money on authentication. And then two is just ease of system, right? A lot of times frontline workers don't access, especially HR systems, that frequently. So how do they make it really easy just to find out what you need? So kind of like a single pane of glass has been a big thing for
Mm-hmm.
us, meaning one place to go, regardless if you need a payroll issue, a benefits issue, time off, creating a safety issue, et cetera, right? So just making it super easy in terms of that experience layer. So I think that's the big thing of just making a really great intuitive experience and one place to go and making it easy for them to get help. And it could be somebody in the factory, it could be somebody who's working in a warehouse, it could be a field service person, somebody in the field, or it could even be through a mobile experience. And this was a good example I heard not too long ago is frontline worker isn't at work, they're at a auto dealership or a bank trying to get a loan or
Mm.
something, they need employment verification. And that may have been a week, they need to get their car and years ago, it's a really frustrating experience, or they had to call HR and maybe on Tuesday when they're back in the office. And so now they can get it almost immediately through mobile access as well. So
Yes.
yeah, those are just some quick examples of what we're doing is making it really easy for frontline workers to get access to the information that they need.
Yeah, I love that. Thinking about how the platform allows for the employee experience to be like the front door to HR, whether it's for vacation, financing, and all these different things. There's that employee experience that provides the front door to HR, which is awesome. So, Alan, you talked about generative AI. You were like, I have to talk about generative AI.
I get yelled at if I don't, yeah.
You'll get yelled at if you don't, right? And so I want to turn the conversation a little bit to talk about emerging technologies and first about generative AI. What does generative AI mean for the manufacturing sector? What does it mean and what does it look like?
Yeah, well, there's so many, it's in the pilot stage, and I've talked to my manufacturing customers because at ServiceNow, it's all we talk about, right? From a technology company,
Yeah.
woohoo! But in manufacturers, they're like, yeah, we're thinking about it, we're analyzing it, right? Slow to move, slow to adapt, which I don't blame them. If I was in those people's shoes, I'd be careful. But I'll talk about especially the context of ServiceNow because there's so many things going on. Is how we're helping our manufacturing customers, and there's a few areas. One is around like just problem resolutions, right? So similar to the answer of the knowledge zipping to the right answers, how do we help workers who need answers get them faster, right?
Mm,
Easier. So I see it, Gen AI for me in manufacturing is just kind of the turbocharge behind the digital transformation. It's nothing separate and isolated. Oh, I'm going to do this, and oh, Gen AI is over here. Gen AI is just part of what you're already doing, just makes it better, faster. So like knowledge, we already were doing knowledge. Now we can really get it more precise. The other thing could be around troubleshooting. So let's take the example of either an operator of trying to fix a piece of equipment. Gen AI can help them diagnose, right? Well, taking about all the other times that similar piece of equipment has been fixed, either in that plan or even other plans that you have. And so because all that process is digitized, we can serve it up to help them diagnose the problem faster. Or maybe in manufacturing, it's a tech support person who's supporting a customer call coming and saying they have a problem with a piece of equipment. Imagine that tech support person and their system that they're looking at also gets served up ideas and suggestions on how to resolve that thing, or gets them use a Gen AI to really summarize what to do. And then the other piece we're seeing is when things do get fixed, right? Everybody's really bad at typing in notes of how they resolve it, especially like an operator. Can you imagine after he tweaked a
yeah.
piece of equipment and what they did, or a tech support person who has 10 calls in the queue, spending a few minutes writing down how they resolved the last call. But if you don't do that, you don't learn, right? And other people, back to the knowledge thing, other people come after you can't learn. So we're using Gen AI to help
Mm,
automatically create the summarization, which goes into the database. And so the next time that problem is seen by someone else, we can serve that up as the recommended answer. So those are just a couple of
yeah.
examples of what we're doing.
Yeah, that kind of references back to what you were talking about earlier with the aging workforce and wanting to digitize that institutional knowledge. And so
Yeah.
now we kind of circle back to that again here, and even how generative AI is becoming a part of that. So I really appreciate that interconnectedness. As we continue to talk about emerging technologies, I have to ask you about the Internet of Things. That's
Yeah.
something that I have just a personal interest in. And
Yeah.
even thinking back to Bill McDermott's keynote address, he invited on stage uh, Omar El Hari, I believe that's his name. I some by happenstance, I happened to meet
Yeah.
him in the airport several months ago, just by
Oh,
chance,
yeah.
by wearing a ServiceNow hat in the airport. Anyway, and he took the stage to talk about Internet of Things.
Yeah.
Curious about Internet of Things and what that means for manufacturing sector. And is it too soon to even be talking about this in an industry that is maybe slow to adopt digital transformation?
Yeah, no, no, not too soon. In fact, that's more prevalent than the Gen AI is. So let's talk
Mm,
about it. So I'll look at it in two buckets. One, we'll do the IIoT, industrial Internet of Things, which is
mm,
within the four walls. So let's talk about it within the four walls of the company, which is the manufacturing operations. And um, we're seeing a lot of that. It's already been out there, right? So a lot of the equipment now has sensors and data spewing data off of it. And so the question is, what do we do with that, right? So we're working with partners and our manufacturers, grabbing that data, sending it into cloud storage, data lake, et cetera. So now we've got tons of IoT data. And then what is it telling me, and how do I do something with it? And so for us, what we've seen is, um, and we're still seeing if you read the trade publications, return on investment for
yeah,
IoT stuff. So great, I have the sensors, I'm capturing stuff, I'm sending it somewhere. Now they're running predictions and stuff and algorithms, and what is it telling me? And then it shows up on a dashboard, right? So great, but now what? And so where ServiceNow is coming in is the last mile is that system of action. So now I know something's happening. What am I doing with it? So we're working together to complete that whole journey. We'll call it from insight to action. So
sure,
I'm collecting the data, I'm analyzing it, I'm figuring out, well, there's something wrong here, or there's something could be wrong, which is really where you want to be. And then doing something with it and having ServiceNow serve up as a system of action is now I know what it is. I know what piece of equipment is coming from based on before. I know what to do about it and I know who to send it to. So now I create an incident, a task, whatever. And that's where the workflow comes in and send it to somebody to make sure it's done. Give it, you know who to send it to. You can tell them what to do. You know if it was done, and maybe it's not done in 10 minutes or 30 minutes based on priority. Someone else knows about it. The long-term future, and we're seeing a little bit, is maybe a person doesn't have to respond to something. Maybe I know in ServiceNow actually automatically make an adjustment on the machine, so it could be bi-directional. The machine tells you something's wrong, and then we tell the machine what to change. So
sure,
it's just a little snippet of what's happening within the factory. Super exciting. That's really want to be, because before you had to depend on an operator to say, hey, something's weird. My machine's running slow, or it's making a noise, or the temperature won't stay in range. And so they'll go in and they'll log an incident. And that's still valid. But we want to couple that with, now an incident can be triggered either by an operator, human, or by the asset itself, the equipment telling you something's wrong, which is the IoT piece. So
sure,
that's within
sure.
the four walls, right? And the second half of that is
Mm,
outside connected products, right? So I think I forgot the stat, but it's a really high stat that says the number of companies is focusing on and creating connected products, right? Cars we know are connected. A lot of other pieces of assets. If you ever seen a Caterpillar tractor and the telematics on those
right,
are all connected assets. So those are all generating lots of information. So that same concept, except it's at a customer site. So getting that data of assets that's in the field deployed at a customer, again, the same concept, bring it back to some kind of database storage IoT platform, analyzing, figuring it out, monitoring it, and then figuring out there's something wrong here. I needs to do something about it. Then sending information back to a service provider, to the customer themselves, et cetera, being that closed loop back to the customer. Again, being that system of action. So yeah, I think that's super exciting space. And
yeah.
that, to me, I like that just because it's really real. Right now I'm seeing something and I could predict it and prevent it. Um, and then knowing what to do about it, right? So where we're really helping is taking it from the dashboard, that's nice, and something's blinking right on a dashboard or something, to actually driving action to ensure something gets done about it.
Sure. IIoT is something again that just really is intriguing to me. And what I like about your explanation is that you're not asking the frontline employees to be technologists, right? You're
Mm-mm.
talking about technology in a way that helps to that helps them to do their job better,
Yeah.
more efficiently, quicker, and that I think is what's really compelling about this, because what can be intimidating is if the shift comes to, well, we're no longer doing the work of manufacturing the goods, the products, et cetera, but
Yeah.
now we're becoming technologists, right? And that's not what the business is about. So I'm glad to hear that that system of action, as you describe, works in the way that it does, especially when it comes to IIoT.
Yeah, I have a fun story. It was one of the people I was talking to, like, Alan, I just want an easy button for my operator, right? I don't want
Yes,
to have to figure out what's going on. I just want to hit the easy button that something's wrong, right? It could be equipment, it could be the ceiling's dripping, it could be there's a potential hazard, it could be the production schedule wrong. It doesn't matter, and nor the operator just knows I need something to get my job done. So have them
that's
hit the
right.
easy button, and ServiceNow or some workflow system should be able to figure out based on what they're asking what they need help with and who to route it to get it done, right? That's the ultimate.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
something's wrong. I need something. You guys figure out, make sure I get my help as soon as possible.
sure. I love that you said that because it
Yeah.
made me realize, the value prop is in the name, service now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
I want service
I
now.
want
Yeah.
service now.
Yeah.
So, an IIoT could be the first step, but I'm curious in your view, w- what would be if you're a customer, if you're a customer looking at a manufacturing company looking to embark upon their digital transformation journey, what would you say is the first step? How would you start? How would you go about? What's your recommendation there?
Yeah. I think be clear on the problem you're trying to solve, right? Don't
Mhm.
transform for transform's sake and don't put in technology for technology's sake. It's start with the problem, right? Is and be really clear about it and then have a vision of what it looks like when you're done, right? So I always use the example if you digitize or automate a bad process, you just get the wrong answer faster. So you I didn't make that
That
up.
part.
That's been old saying.
Yeah.
But have a vision of what kind of this process could look like. And then the technology comes to make that come to fruition. And so I think that's a lot of missing sometimes is yeah, maybe they know the problem, but they don't quite have an idea what it could, what they like the experience to be like before
Right.
they start implementing technology. And then it's done. They're like, yeah, that's not really solving the problem, right? Um, it's just sometimes it makes it worse. Sometimes it's more complicated to your point. So I think that's what I would start is really clear definition of the problem, really clear, I guess, objective goal. Like
Mm,
are you trying to reduce costs? You're trying to improve employee experience. You're trying to do both. Make sure you have some clear value pieces of it of kind of financially or outcomes,
yeah.
and then also the experience itself, what you'd like it to look like. And then you start designing and solutioning and implementing technology. But I think people miss
Yeah.
those early steps frequently.
And what I'm also, gleaning from what you're saying is don't boil the ocean. You don't have to fix
Yeah.
everything at once. The process, it's a process. It's not just this one time event that happens with digital transformation. That's what it seems like I'm hearing you say as well.
Yeah, I think you need a big grand vision, which I like, right?
Hmm.
But implement in pieces, right? Because you need to know what the end looks like when it's all done or have a vision. But start small. The years of having a 3-year ERP, whatever implementation are gone, right? Short time to value because you need to get things done and fix quickly and see savings quickly. So big vision, big wild hairy dreams, but implement in bite-sized chunks.
Sure. I'm going to ask you about any success stories that you may have seen. We'd be curious about that to make it real for people who are watching. I'm going to get to some of the questions with so much focus on out of the box capabilities. Is software like ServiceNow able to accommodate unique requirements and use cases? This is a good
Yeah,
question. I was
yeah,
listening to a brewery podcast this weekend, and they were talking about all this unique stuff around hops and cans and all this different like things I never even thought about, right?
yeah.
So we talk about unique cases, like how is that accommodated when there's a focus on out of the box capabilities?
Yeah, well, so ServiceNow is a platform. I think that's the big difference. So it inherently is super flexible versus a point solution which is designed and built to do. one thing. Where ServiceNow is, it is super flexible, and majority of stuff can be done by configuration. So I think that's the power of the platform. It is so flexible. Yeah, can it do everything? No, but can you break it? Probably. But I think that the, the stretchability, I've never used that word before, right, of the platform is super powerful. So odds are it probably can. So we don't see it. I mean, people do customize, but I think as we've matured the platform, it can accommodate a lot of things. I think where you'd get into trouble is you try to shove ServiceNow into an area like it just shouldn't be. Like, we are not a financial system, right? So if you want to do it to manage your credits and debits, probably not the thing, or some other pieces.
Hmm.
So as long as you're within the realm of workflow or business process automation, we can accommodate most things. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, and I think also a plug for GlideFast, right? Going with a good partner, right, can keep you out of trouble as well.
Yeah, that's true. And, service now is definitely investment. I love to hear your thoughts a little bit more about that. Um, Perhaps you can share a success story. I'm here at GlideFast, and, I'm definitely here because I wanted to be working with the top tier partner in the ecosystem, and fortunate to have been chosen by GlideFast. So if you can share success stories to help make this real for folks, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun watching the manufacturing sector grow as we started. When I started verticalizing here about 4 years ago, still majority of customers were still focusing on the IT piece, where our bread and butter was, and seeing successes outside of HR over the last 4 years has been really fun to watch. So companies like PepsiCo has really adopted that single pane of glass concept for actually all employees, not just frontline employees. So they want to just provide um, an easy way for employees to get service, right? So all back office functions in theory are service providers. So it could be finance and accounting or purchasing or marketing, or HR or IT. If an employee needs service, they go to one place to go to request services. And they've really adopted this. And I think that's being facilitated by a lot of organizations coalescing around kind of a GBS or shared service model, which helps. So there's a shining example. I love to tell the story of Kraft Heinz, or a couple of neat areas that they're expanding outside of IT. One is around their customer service. And so they get like 1 million orders a year, a lot of electronic EDI, and like 90% of them have exceptions that something needs to change and adjust.
Mm,
Either the order's wrong or they're out of stock of something, et cetera, et cetera. So they're using ServiceNow to flag all order exceptions, quickly make resolutions to those orders, communicate to the customer, is this change okay? And then get that order approved and out the door so the customer can get the order on time. They've also actually, Kraft Heinz, expanded into product development. So they're using, here's a fun story. It started in IT, right? Using it for project portfolio management as IT decides what projects to fund and approve and manage. And the R&D people said, hey, we have our project process very similar. I like what you're doing over there. And so they adopted the same rigor and methodologies, just with a little tweak, and moved it over to R&D.
sure.
I think one last fun story I'll share is around Heineken, right? You mentioned brewery, right?
Yes.
So they're using ServiceNow in the factory to digitize processes from setup and changeover, um, and daily inspections and 5S walks, et cetera, using it to really improve their OEE, right, which is a key measure in the factory.
Yeah.
They're using it in, I'm going to mess up the number, 50 or 60 of the brewery, all the breweries, I forgot the number, around the globe to really drive improvement. And the neat thing, the story there is, hey, when something goes wrong, the operator will log an issue, and then they'll use ServiceNow to help diagnose it. Great, this is the issue. And then use ServiceNow to help tell them how to fix it. So now I help you diagnose, and then I help you make the change, right? And then what they're seeing values of is the learnings between the plants, right? Their bottling equipment, et
I love
cetera,
that.
is very similar across the breweries. So helping the diagnosis piece, if maybe I haven't run into this issue in my plant, but it's the same asset, filling machine, et cetera, running in many of the other breweries. And if somebody else has found it, then it's going to show up for me. And so that, which they love, is the learnings between their plants as well. So that's just a handful. I could rattle on, but then we're going to go over our time. But I mean,
No,
just a
those
few
are
examples
awesome.
of customers using it. Another area, I just want to make sure I hit one around the supplier area. We haven't talked too much around supplier. Another big push is around supplier relationship and supplier management. So we have companies like like Boeing, right, is it's really important when this supply management, as we've seen lately, unfortunately, is somebody makes a change, is they have a very rigorous process for a review, approval, and documentation for a supplier change. So, for example, a supplier wants to make a change on a design of a component going in an airplane. They have to submit an engineering request. Where before, and honestly, I don't know exactly what they're using before, but it wasn't super efficient. They weren't super happy with it. So now they're using ServiceNow to make that engineering request. So a supplier will go in, make this request on an official form. It'll route to somebody in supply engineering on Boeing side to review. It gets approved. And supplier knows, okay, your change has been approved. Now you can go ahead and commence making that new part. So just examples like that of all those little cracks and gaps in processes are now being digitized. So not only do you make it easier for somebody to submit it or approve, but also auditability is a big thing now. Is, was it done? Who signed off on it, et cetera, and the visibility of that. So just a
I
couple
sh
examples.
those are awesome examples, and I appreciate, and I'm just kind of putting a synopsis around this because what I understand you saying is improving processes and basically improving return on investment. And I appreciate what you said about the request management piece.
Yeah.
Another piece that I wanted to call out was how you have these plants that are now able to communicate with each other more efficiently and driving and improving processes, which I think is just so awesome. We're almost done with our time, but we do have another question. Then I have
Okay.
a question for you before we're
Uh-oh.
out of here.
Okay.
So this goes back to generative AI and emerging technologies. What are the ethical considerations surrounding the use of AI in automation and manufacturing, particularly concerning job displacement and workforce reskilling? You touched on this a little bit. If you have something additional to add, be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's always in any technology, right? Like, why you're gonna eliminate jobs, but we're seeing there's such a gap. And so it kind of flipped. It's like we and people are being overworked, so we can't survive at this workload of the people. So we need to improve their productivity just to keep up with what we have. So we're not seeing a job displacement. We're seeing actually improved job satisfaction is either taking away tasks that aren't super exciting anymore,
Yeah.
or just take the workload off of them. Um, so they can do their jobs even better. So I know years ago, and that was always the thing, is eliminating jobs by improving productivity, but that's just not the case anymore with this worker shortage and skills gap shortage. I think
Yeah.
we're seeing just the opposite. It's truly beneficial, and we're seeing it not replacing, but in just making things a little better. Like, hey, I don't want to type resolution notes. Example I told her. So it's great. It's taking away a thing
Yeah.
that I didn't like to do anyway. That's awesome. And what I'd like to do is helping customers and spending, an hour of my day or maybe in the evenings or staying overtime to type stupid notes up. I don't have to do that anymore. So I think that's what we're really seeing, to be honest with you, in this whole concept, even though we need to keep it front and center, right? Not forget about it, but I'm not seeing as much as people are worried about.
Sure, sure. Okay, so Alan Hackman, final question.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about let's talk about looking ahead. Let's talk about the future. How do
Yeah.
you see the landscape of manufacturing evolving over the next handful of years, 5, 6 years, with advancement of digital transformation?
Wow, I think it's, I don't think you're going to see any hockey stick. I think it's just going to be slow and steady. We've always seen in
Mm,
manufacturing, right? We're always going to want to do things faster with better quality, more, safer. And I think that just the trend is going to continue and technology is going to just enhance that. I don't think it's going to be any monumental change. I think maybe some of the breakthroughs will be around training, right? The the
mm,
digital twin concepts, some of the digital technologies available to improve training. Um, Allow us to bring workers up to speed quicker. Um, I'm seeing some stuff. I was at NVIDIA last week just to see simulations of like building factories before they're even built, right? To make sure the design is right, the layout is right before they even break ground. So I think you're going to see some advancements in those areas. Um, and just I think improving the lives and the safety of the workers. So I think it's going to be a slow, steady climb for our manufacturing customers.
I
Um,
love I
it-
love how you said slow and steady because that's sort of how that's the evolution and the theme of the manufacturing before this so-called digital transformation age anyway.
yeah, yeah, I've never been one to jump on buzzwords, right? I'm like, yep, let's see how it
Yeah.
plays out. So I think the concept of continuous improvement has always been the core of
Mm,
manufacturing. I think it's just this just helps us get there, right? And I think maybe the one change that's starting to be prevalent is, using information data even more than we did before, right? So I think that's going to really help inform and make some better decisions. But I think what I'm excited about is now is finally the time. I think it's going to help people do their jobs better. How do I fix this? How do I do this? How do we get trained better? So I think it's just shifting more about the people, which is exciting because things that make equipment better don't excite me that much. I mean, that's cool, it's important, but as we're affecting lives in a more positive way, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that is pretty neat. I appreciate that. Listen, Alan Hackman, AVP and GM of the manufacturing vertical sector at ServiceNow. I so appreciate your time here for GlideFast on Air. Thank you so much for joining us.
You bet. Pleasure.
I'm excited because my next guest is someone that I get a chance to work closely with here at GlideFast, and that's Mark Harper. Mark Harper is a solution sales consultant, and he has been key in providing businesses with tools they need to streamline operations, improve efficiency, and drive growth. Mark's professional empathy and extensive knowledge of the industry have made him a thought leader in manufacturing technology and an industry go to for delivering sustainable solutions for manufacturing organizations. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining me here for this conversation.
No, it's good to be part of the after party. Glad to be here.
Good to have you. Good to have you. Now listen, you roll your sleeves up and work side by side with our customers here at GlideFast, helping them in their digital transformation journey. So I have to find out what are some of the themes that you're seeing? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing with customers in the manufacturing industry?
Yeah, I think the conversation you just had there with Alan really sort of hit home on what we're seeing on our side of the house as well. A lot of it's coming down to that poor visibility of their industry, their estate, everything that's sort of working together with these rather complex systems, and understanding how they actually work together and what the actual operational health looks like from those various different
Mm,
technologies. And then the thing that was mentioned a good few times with your discussion is that transfer of knowledge that's occurring is it can be rocky. You've got like the stat that you mentioned before, 50% of the people typically working in the manufacturing space is over the age of 55.
yeah.
And the way that they interact can be very different to millennials or Gen Z. And that's why we're looking to use these advancements in technologies to help with that transfer of knowledge.
Yeah.
I know Gen AI being one of the buzzwords, but I'm skeptical of this as of applications of Gen AI. But in this area, this is where I see it being a potential for true success. Trying to sort of break through those boundaries of the different generational gaps to be able to make it easier for the new generation coming through that's going to be working on the manufacturing floor to be able to work as if they were a long tenured employee.
Absolutely. I thank you for circling back to the aging workforce within the manufacturing sector. I want to talk a little bit more about that. When it comes to organizational change management, reflect on how often folks who have been in a particular line of work or at a particular organization for a quite a long time may not be the most open to the digital transformation change that's afoot, right? So, in your view, in working with customers, working with manufacturing clients, how are you helping with that organizational change piece?
Yeah, I mean, it can pose a significant challenge. What we have to do is frame it in a way that's going to be mutual, be beneficial for all parties involved. We're trying to make their lives easier, trying to have them focus on the day-to-day primary function of their jobs rather than the secondary function, and which could be creating like completing cases, work orders, putting all of those resolution notes in place. Those things that can be looked at as like more of a burden than what they've signed up for their level of employment.
Yeah,
So involving us with that OCM, those organizational change activities, we can paint that picture of what the future looks like, of how it's going to be beneficial to their day, their own involvement with processes, and just trying to make everybody feel that they're moving forward together rather than being left behind.
sure. So, what I hear you saying is talking about making this a team effort, helping to communicate the messaging around how this is going to help you be able to do your job better. Am I understanding you correctly?
Because there's definitely certain technologies that can be incorporated onto the floor that certain groups and individuals are just going to be not interested in, and that can be okay. We can sort of work with that as part of that transformation, that journey. I was having a conversation not too long ago about incorporating augmented reality into their field services. So being able to look at a technology, a device, and have an overlay on my glasses and be able to see exactly which part needed to be replaced. That's probably something that's very attractive to somebody that maybe on the younger end of their spectrum of their career, trying to get that involved with somebody on the tail end
Sure.
might be more of a challenge. But that's what
Sure.
forward looking about these kinds of innovations, things that can be done to lead to that transfer of knowledge to the next generation coming up and making their lives easier and reducing the risk of running the plan.
Sure. I like the way you frame that about bringing technology in the organization in a way that really allows for the plant worker to do their jobs better, and even in kind of a cool kind of a way, right? I think that being able to socialize that to employees is really what's critical. So I appreciate you kind of giving that insight and how to kind of socialize that with the employees. Mark, I want to ask you about digital transformation because I know it sounds so fantastic. Obviously it is, but it's not without pitfalls. So
Mhm.
I'm curious in your view, what should manufacturers be aware of and how can they navigate those when it comes to kind of expanding or starting their digital transformation? What are the common pitfalls to be aware of?
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations, even outside of manufacturing as well, fall into this trap of collecting everything from a data perspective without truly taking a step back to understand how am I going to use that data in an effective way. So we're seeing a lot of our customers coming to us saying we need to integrate with tool X. We need these metrics from device Y on this production line, but they haven't thought about how I'm going to use it once I've actually collected that effectively. So Alan hit on this quite well with trying to put forward what the vision of success could look like, make sure they're all mutually agreed upon what that looks like and when we've got there, and then start identifying what is my solution to be able to get to that promised land. And then from
Totally.
there, we can start getting creative with ingesting data from various different third-party sources to address that use case.
Yep.
Um, Data is no good without a purpose, and we want to identify that purpose and then go about doing it in a constructive and repeatable manner.
I appreciate your insight on that. And it makes me now have to ask you when manufacturers decide to embark upon their digital transformation journey, they've got to find a partner, a trusted advisor to be shoulder to shoulder with them. They're really exposing themselves, their processes, this a long history of doing things a certain way, and it could be quite uncomfortable. I'm curious about what's it like in your role in how for customers who choose GlideFast as an implementation partner. Tell us a little bit, give us a little bit of insight into that.
It's actually quite surprising how open a lot of customers actually are in regards to some of the shortcomings of their processes that they're operating with today. Because 10 years ago, it was fine, it was working. There was very little exposure from like potential vulnerabilities or ransomware. It was very closed off to the IT environment. Now that's certainly shifting, and they're recognizing that running their business, understanding how these different processes are working together, all from a spreadsheet, is not going to scale effectively. And the cost of downtime that we're seeing with it, I think is looking right now per hour. If your plant isn't running, the average is like $250 to $750,000 of downtime that's being experienced. That's just something that we just can't deal with just because we're not providing visibility we need and the processes to become digitized. And so we are seeing a lot of cooperation from our customers who actively want to be part of this journey and really pushing the boundaries of what they need to do to become successful.
Sure. Thank you for that. You just mentioned Excel spreadsheets. How prevalent is that with customers that you've seen starting their digital transformation journey?
Tremendous. I mean, it's quite scary in a sense how the world really runs on Excel.
Mm,
But we are really recognizing that they're pushing themselves forward. And what I've been quite surprised by is how transparent they are with their what could be looked at as competitors. These different forums, different groups coming together to talk about their successes, their pain points, and their challenges. and trying to move the industry forward all together. I've been quite pleasantly surprised by the transparency of the different organizations we work with sharing their success. And no better place to see it than joining everybody together at Knowledge. Fantastic week over there. And it was just great seeing our customers come together, sharing their success.
So that makes me ask because I think it's great to hear how transparent your customers can be and being vulnerable. I wonder, however, how is it that you engage with them? Because I can't imagine that they would be so transparent and so vulnerable with anyone. I wonder I don't want you to give away too many of the secrets, but in terms of methodology and how are those engagements, what does it look like? I want to be put in the place of someone who's been working on Excel spreadsheets since Excel was created. And how do I then become comfortable enough with you, with GlideFast, to say, hey, I want you guys as my implementation partner?
No, that's a great question. Fortunately, we've had like tremendous success with hundreds, thousands of engagements with all different organizations and verticals. So a lot of time when we get introduced to the manufacturing arm or the operational technology arm, we've already been working with the IT division. So we've showcased our success and our expertise in that space, sort of led them through their own digital transformation within inside the IT arena, and they've helped broker that introduction into the other areas of the business. We've been able to showcase how we're able to use this effectively with IT, the workflows that's been expanded from that potential data set, and being able to hang our hats on that level of success so that we could paint a picture of how that could be applied in these lower levels of the OT and manufacturing and factory spaces.
Okay. And we're almost out of time, but we do have a couple questions. How can manufacturers use ServiceNow to get a better handle of their supply chain and keep things running smoothly, even when the unexpected problems pop up?
Good question. So we do have ties into some of the different like supply chain tool, like different providers that may be in place. So using that from like advanced shipping notices to come in and into the system, but understanding where there's going to be hiccups along the way is where you have your workflow in place to be able to understand what the various tasks or triages are going to be overcome that situation. So a lot of it comes down to what kind of data set we can get as a feed from your vendors, whoever's going to be a
Mm,
part of that supply chain and operations, and then tying it into the effective workflow for how you can deal with the exception processes, because we know it's not always going to run smoothly, and we need to have our plans in place and our workflows in place to handle that level of hiccup.
yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. So finally, I want to ask you this final question. For manufacturing leaders listening to this, what one piece of advice would you give as they steer their organization through the waters of digital transformation?
I think it's a bit cliche to say, but don't let the idea of perfect get in the way of good.
Hmm.
We see a lot of times with organizations that set this like pie sky kind of vision of what can be accomplished, and it takes them a year or two to even get started. A continual surface improvement of taking these different iterations of success is going to get you there in a quicker manner than holding off until it can be perfect.
Awesome. Well, listen, Mark Harper, Sales Solution Consultant at GlideFast Consulting. I'm Kali Alexander, Account Executive at GlideFast. I want to thank you so much for joining us for GlideFast on Air, and I'll see you next time. Bye.